What's going on, everybody? Anthony Servino here with the Face Off Sports Network with my top starts and sits at the wide receiver position for NFL Week 13. We're going to start with Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey, he is starting to get going. In 4 out of his past 5 games, at least 11.4 PPR points with at least 14.3 in 2 straight. He's had at least 5 receptions in all 4 of those games we just talked about, 3 of which with 6. He's also had 3 games, at least 83 yards in this 5-game time period, and 2 games over 111. We are seeing the emergence of this rookie, but what's stopping him from really popping? He hasn't scored a touchdown since week 8. He's in a 4-game scoring drought, but the usage is there. 22.8% of the team targets, 25.2% of the time he is running a route. He is earning a target from Justin Herbert. Speaking of Justin Herbert, the Chargers are probably going to have to rely on Justin Herbert more to throw the football. This is a run-first offense. It ran through J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins dealing with the knee injury. He is not playing this week. Maybe he even misses more time. I get they have Gus Edwards, they have Haskins, they have Vidal, but neither one of those running backs are as effective as J.K. Dobbins. I expect the Chargers, who have been throwing it more, to rely even more so on Justin Herbert, which is really good news for the usage of Ladd McConkey. More good news for Ladd McConkey. He gets the Atlanta Falcons this week. The third easiest matchup for enemy wide receivers. The Falcons, they give up a ton of production in the secondary. This defense has gone backwards. It was a little bit tighter this year, and this is a nice spot for Ladd McConkey. As we know, the Falcons have given up double-digit PPR points to 4 different Denver wide receivers. Denver wide receivers. The last time the Atlanta Falcons were on the field. They've been gashed by the wide receiver position all year long, and I don't see that changing. This could be one of the best games of the year for Ladd McConkey. Next up, Courtland Sutton. I was out on Sutton last week in the matchup. I'm going to be accountable there, and it blew up in my face. He put up a season-best 29.7 PPR points, 8 of 10 targets, 97 yards, and a pair of touchdowns. Since week 8, Courtland Sutton, he looks like an alpha wide receiver. He's gone for at least 14.8 PPR points in all 5 of those games. He's gone over 19 in 4 of those games and over 23 in 2 of those games. He's had at least 8 targets in every one of those games and at least 10 in 3 out of that 5. And he has scored 3 touchdowns in his past 3 games, 2 last week and 1 in week 15. He is emerging. And Courtland Sutton's been around. He's not a new guy. He's always flashed, but this is the best version of Courtland Sutton we have ever seen. He's being targeted on 24.7 of the routes he is running and getting 24.9% of the team's targets, which is 92nd percentile amongst qualifying wide receivers. He's also getting 40.7% of his team's air yards. The usage is there. The production is there. And this week he gets the Cleveland Browns. Terrific matchup. We know this Browns defense, they're pretty good against the run, but they're extremely leaky against wide receivers. They've gotten worse as the season has gone on. We have seen them in back-to-back weeks give up over 16 PPR points to Calvin Austin and MVS, but the really talented receivers have gone off in this matchup. We've seen guys like Quentin Johnston pop. And this Quentin Johnston, like, we know what he brings to the table. In that Quentin Johnston matchup, we saw Palmer and McConkey both go for double digits. We have seen guys like A.J. Brown pop in this matchup. We've seen Zay Flowers and Nelson Aguilar, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, McLaurin and Diami Brown. Multiple times this season, this secondary has given up double-digit PPR points to multiple wide receivers in the same wide receiver room. And I'm expecting a similar fate. I absolutely love Courtland Sutton this week, but it wouldn't surprise me if Dejon Vele also has a solid outing. This is going to be a big game for Bo Nix. Another player we are starting. I'm going back to the DJ Moore pool. DJ Moore, He is starting to cook with the new offensive coordinator in the past 2 games. He puts up back-to-back games at least 13.7 PPR points. He goes off for 24.9 last week. For context, that 13.7 PPR point game against Green Bay, it was his first game in the double digits since week 5. That 24.7 0.9 outing last week, his first game in the 20s since week 5. Over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown last week. He's also had back-to-back games with 7 for 62 as a floor. Now, he's only had 7 targets in each of the past 2 games. I can see that number going up because he is getting that rapport we've been waiting for all season long with Caleb Williams. This matchup this week against the Detroit Lions, normally we know that DJ Moore pops against the Detroit Lions in his career. He has scored a touchdown in 4 out of 5 games against Detroit, including back to his days with the Carolina Panthers. And in all 5 games, he's put up at least 15 PPR points. He's gone for over 100 yards receiving 2 times and over 83 4 times. This is one of those player versus team scenarios I'm going to bank on. Plus, the Lions, they have a really good run defense. They're going to take out DeAndre Swift and company, which means Caleb Williams is going to have to throw the football, and that's a good thing. The Lions' defense is extremely leaky, and even if the Lions kick the Bears' ass, there's going to be garbage time production to be had. We know wide receivers. There's a lot of wide receivers putting up double-digit PPR points against this defense, and I'm assuming that DJ Moore is going to have another pop outing. If you gave up on DJ Moore, this is the time to start buying back in. He has now shown us 2 weeks in a row with the new OC that it's starting to come together. If you like content like this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the alert icon so you can be notified anytime we go live to answer your questions or drop videos just like this. If you have start-sit questions, trade questions, waiver wire questions, ask them in the comment section below. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Now the players we are sitting, we are going to start with Jayden Reed. This Packers team, they're winning football games. But how are they winning? This is OG LaFleur. They're running the football and playing good defense. The reason why, if you remember the last year, they had to throw the hell out of the football with Jordan Love more than they ever really threw with Aaron Rodgers in the LaFleur era. It's because the defense was not good. This defense tightened up. They brought in Josh Jacobs. They're running efficiently. They're playing good defense, and Jordan Love doesn't have to do a lot. In 3 out of his past 4 games, Jordan Love has completed under 14 passes, and they're winning these football games. In those games, a lot of Josh Jacobs. You want to know who isn't really involved? Well, Jayden Reed. In 4 out of his past 5 games, Jayden Reed, he's under 9.8 PPR points. Under 9.8. This is a guy we had a lot of expectations on. The problem is there's no volume. He's been under 3 targets in 3 out of his past 4 games and under 4 targets in 4 out of his past 5. He's only had more than 6 targets 1 time this season. We are extremely dependent on the big play with Jayden Reed. He is only being targeted at 17% of the routes he is running. He's only getting 16.7% of the team targets. Really good after the catch. 7.7 yards after the catch. That's 95th percentile. But he's not getting enough opportunities to put that to good enough use. If he's not scoring, if he's not popping for the big yards, we are looking at meager fantasy outings, and that is not something I want to rely on this week against the Miami Dolphins, who are number 1 when it comes to containing enemy fantasy wide receivers. The Dolphins, since Tua has come back, it's not just the offense. The defense is also getting healthy. They're waking up a little bit, and they are shutting down a lot of good players. Now, granted, the past 2 games, they shut down Vegas receivers like they should. They shut down New England receivers as they should. But we've even seen them a few weeks ago in Week 10. We thought it was going to be a lot of points. They held Nakua and Kupp to respectable days. They've contained Buffalo receivers. They've contained a lot of good receivers this year. Well, they have a really good player named Jalen Ramsey who can really bottle up elite wideouts. I am sitting Jayden Reed, and quite frankly, I'm sitting a lot of Packers receivers this week. Next up, we are sitting Jayden Waddle in this same matchup. Last week, I was in on Waddle. I told you to start him. It was a gut feeling. It was historical production against New England. He popped. 28.4 PPR points, buck 44 and 1 on 8 receptions. Guess what? I am going back to this sit for Jayden Waddle. Yes, I do think down the stretch he can pop a few more times. But Green Bay, this is one of the better secondaries in the NFL. They're 7th when it comes to containing enemy wide receivers. They don't give up a lot of production at all. In fact, although these are two high-octane offenses, both of these offenses are currently running through their running backs. We just talked about it. Josh Jacobs, we just talked about it. Devin Achane. I can see this game, especially in Green Bay or especially in Miami. It's going to be cold in Green Bay. Maybe it snows. These two teams are going to run the hell out of the football. I don't know how many targets they're going to be for Jayden Reed, who we just talked about. I don't know how many targets they're going to be for Jayden Waddle. As we know, the 9 targets last week was an outlier. He has had under 6 targets in every single game outside of 2 this season. This matchup worries me for Jayden Waddle. I think he's going to be extremely big play and scoring dependent, just like I said about Jayden Reed. We are sitting Jayden Waddle against the Packers. Again, there's going to be times rest of season I think we buy in. It is not going to be against Green Bay. The past 2 games, they've contained Bears wide receivers. We just talked about DJ Moore and company. That offense is passing the ball better with the new OC. They contained the 49ers. I get it, the backup quarterback, but they still have elite weapons you got to shut down. They've done that. They shut down Houston in week 7. They've shut down Arizona receivers to under 10 PPR points. This is a really good secondary. We are fading Jayden Waddle. Let's go to the final player we are sitting, Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, we know he's an erratic player anyway, but in the past 2 games, he's over 11.8 PPR points. In fact, he's been in the double-digit PPR point range in all but 3 games this season. He's bringing a high floor, and he does bring that pop capability. He had 7 targets last week. It was a good matchup, but they held him out of the end zone. When he's held out of the end zone, 5 for 64, solid stat line, 11.8 PPR points. But if you want that max production that we see, that ceiling, he needs to go for over 100 and a touchdown. He's done that a few times. I don't see him doing that this week against Chicago. Chicago, they're an elite defense. We talked about the good ones, Green Bay. We're talking about Miami. Chicago has been an elite defense when it comes to containing enemy wide receivers. And this is also the Detroit Lions. It's not like they have to throw the football. This team wants to run the football. They want to run it down your throat. And running the football is how you can get to this Bears defense anyway. I'm expecting a heavy dose of Lions running backs. And they're going to take their deep shots at Jameson Williams. I just don't know how well that's going to work with how well this Bears secondary has played this season. I'm comfortable sitting Jameson Williams. I think this could be a lower scoring game on Thanksgiving morning. But this matchup, like the other 2 we just talked about, scares me a little bit, which is why we are sitting Jameson Williams this week.